Well, hey, guess what? We have just reached our 4-year anniversary. So we have been full-time RVing for the last 4 years, and now we're starting our 5th year. Man, it seems like we just started yesterday too. And so time has really flown as we've enjoyed getting out and having the freedom, the adventure of traveling around and doing what we want to do. And we have met so many cool people. And so today we're going to talk about what it takes to become a full-time RVer, and if this is something that maybe you might be interested in. Hi everyone, this is David with Tigner Adventures and my wife Ninette and our little cat Tansy. We live full-time in our motorhome and we travel all over the place and enjoy meeting people and having fun adventures. And that's what full-time living is all about. And one of the questions that we get quite often is, what does it take to become a full-time RVer? And is it something that I want to do? So today we're going to kind of talk about 5 steps to becoming full-time if that's where you want to actually go. So to start with, we're going to talk about your RV. Now, I'll probably do a video later kind of explaining all the different RVs that are out there, but there's a lot of different ones out there. And which one's best for you? I don't know. You have to kind of figure that out on your own. And one of the best things I've ever heard people suggest is that you go rent some and try them out to kind of determine what you like. In our particular case, we have a Class A motorhome that we love the Class A motorhome. It's very solid, and it's we have it with us all the time. And we do pull a little car with us, and that way we can drive that car around anywhere we want. We get great gas mileage in the car as we travel around compared to a truck, and we're not a truck person. So, that's why we kind of chose the Class A motorhome. But in another video, I'll go into all the different types a little bit more, but you've got to figure out which one you want. Best thing to do probably would be to rent a few to kind of figure out what you want, and then you need to buy one. It's much easier to buy one before you retire than it is after you retire. Once you retire, your income is fixed, and so it makes it a lot more difficult to qualify for a loan if you want to get a loan. If you happen to sell your house and you have a big profit from doing that, then a lot of times people will take that and they'll buy their motorhome that they want. But whatever the case may be, you really need to start before you retire and buy some type of RV and actually get out and start doing things. And there's a few things that does for you. That helps you determine if this is really the life that you want, if you can see yourself doing this full time, and kind of helps you figure out maybe what size you want. Okay, a lot of people like really big units, some like really small units. Let me just tell you, the bigger the unit, the less places you can get into, less places you can boondock, okay, because you have a very large unit. It doesn't turn on a dime, for example, and things like that. So you need to kind of figure that all out. And the big thing is to take lots of test trips. So in those test trips, if it's a new RV that you've got, you're kind of working out all the bugs and things like that. One of the things nice about a new RV is that you have warranties that will cover all the things. So take a lot of test trips and get all those things worked out before you go on the road full time. Now, on the flip side, the nice thing of used is they're usually better quality built, and depending on if you're good at picking things out and do an inspection, which if you look on our website, tigneradventures.com, I do have an inspection sheet there that you can download, and it gives you some ideas of what to ask and things to check when you're looking at used, so that you can find a really good one. But we lucked out. We found this motorhome. We really love it. And when we first started, we just thought, well, you know what? We don't want to spend a lot of money. We want to just try this out. Now, our motorhome cost us $7,000. It's 25 years old, but in its day, in 1994 is when this unit was made. It was $125,000, which was a good chunk of change back then, and it was the top of the line for that at the time. And so you just kind of have to look around and decide what you want, and then if you want to do remodeling work, whatever. I mean, we've put very little as far as repairs. We've put very little repairs into our unit. I've done a lot of different remodeling things. So in fact, if you check right here, I think it's right here. Maybe it's over here. But you can see that, we just recently installed a mini split. So we took the big AC units off our roof. We put mini split in. I mean, we have AC. I mean, not AC. We have solar panels. We have all kinds of fun stuff that we have in this rig. And we don't mind drilling a few holes here and there because it is used. So you just got to kind of figure all those things out. So those are things that you want to start out first. Figure all of it out, and once you do and you really know that this is the life you want, then the next thing is to figure out, are you going to retire before you start, or are you going to get a job and work a remote job, or maybe you have enough money that you can just travel from place to place and do little work camp jobs. We've got several friends that they work a regular 40-hour week at some site, and some places will give you, free place to park your rig, and then you work a regular job. You're just a standard regular employee at 40 hours a week. Now, a lot of those jobs don't necessarily pay a lot of money, but it is income that you can have, and you can continue on and just be, on the road full time. The other ways to do it is, if depending on the type of skills that you have, you can get jobs that have remote accessibility, and it could be anything in the like medical fields. It could be into data processing, programming, things like that, depending on your skill levels. And so, you can do. We have several friends that make great money in the data processing field working remotely, and those jobs are available. I mean, we see people getting those all the time. So it's not like they're hard to get. It's just you got to have the different, the right skills to do whatever. So you got to choose. Am I going to retire and then go full time, or do I want to retire? I mean, do I want to stop my job now, just do something remote, and let's get out on the road? I'll tell you, the sooner the better is my philosophy on life. So then the next thing is the big one. Okay, we came from a 5,500 square foot house, and we now live in a less than 300, I think it's 288 square foot motorhome. So there's a major difference between those two sizes. And so, I mean, it took us like 3 years of selling things off to get rid of everything to even move down to an apartment. We moved down to a 1,000 square foot apartment before we went into the motorhome, because if you know our story, we did not plan to do this life. We've done this all the wrong ways because we did everything backwards, but we did sell our house, we paid off our bills, and we moved into an apartment. And I was just going to move from apartment to apartment because I am done with owning houses. And, whatever I own, I always put tons of money into it, and it's just, we just never have any money because we're always putting it into our house. And so I want to just be in an apartment. I'm just going to move around the country and live in apartments. And then we just happened to come across this lifestyle. And so that's why we tried it out. We didn't want to spend a lot of money, but we wanted to try it out and see if this is something we like. And what? Man, we fell in love with it. And so now this is what we do. And we don't really see this changing, at least not anytime soon, And so because of that, we had to figure out, how are we going to downsize, clear down to, whatever this is, 288 square feet, I think, or something like that. We have a 36-foot rig. It's 8 feet wide. No slides. So that's what we have. And there's a lot of storage, but then you have issues with weight. If you look here, you can see my, no, I think it's over here. Whatever it is, you can see our issues with weight. Okay, and that we have to deal with. And so those are things you got to keep in mind as you're doing all this stuff too. So anyway, but downsizing can be difficult. And let me tell you, it does not. I've got a friend that pays a lot of money for storage units. If you're paying $1,000 a month for storage units, that's $12,000 a year. $12,000 a year can buy a lot of things, as time adds up. And so why keep a lot of that stuff unless it's keepsakes? And then sometimes you can just give that to your kids, or maybe, in our particular case, we have a filing cabinet full of all our business papers because we own businesses and things. And so that file cabinet is stored at our son's house. So that we didn't, we had a storage unit when we first were trying to downsize, and we eventually worked right out of that. And now all we have is really the filing cabinet and a few odds and ends that we just store it over at his place in a little closet, and that works out really well. So that might work for you too. So that's an option. Okay. So then the big question is, if I'm going to retire and I sell my house, in our particular case, we've sold everything. So we really are not linked to any particular area now. We can be anywhere we want. And so what do we do for residency? We came from Utah. That's where we raised our kids. Utah has a 5% flat tax on state for their state tax. They tax everything. Anything that you touch, they tax, okay? And we didn't like that. I mean, we were paying so much in state taxes, it's just ridiculous. And so we wanted to find some place that didn't do that. And let me see here. These are the states that are most popular that you'll see people always talking about as far as taking residency out. Because now you don't live any one place. You can be a resident pretty much anywhere you want. Okay, you have to choose. And so Alaska, if you're a member of Alaska or a resident of Alaska, they actually pay you a stipend each year for living there. But there's a lot of requirements for you to become an Alaska resident. So that might not work for you. But that's one of the top states that people like to get into if they can. Florida, South Dakota, Texas, Nevada, those are probably the 5 most popular states that people are always talking about. But you know what? I think in a lot of ways there's a lot of myths around that because, for example, we decided to go with South Dakota. Now, the reason we went with South Dakota is, one, they don't require your rig to be inspected, so we didn't have to go back and forth. Like Texas, for example, if you go to Texas, you have to have an inspection done, and then, you have to deal with going back to Texas all the time. Well, when we went to South Dakota, we've only been to South Dakota once, one time. So, and that was to take out residency. We stayed one night. Actually, I think we stayed 2 nights. We took that into the DMV. They gave us a driver's license and they put on their physical mailbox, so PMB, and our number. We went to the credit union. We opened a credit union account. They did take that. But then the library would not let us take out a library card because they said, no, you're not a real resident. You're just, that's just a mailbox. That's not a house. You have to have a utility bill, something like that, to kind of prove that you actually live here. So we couldn't do that. And so, and then when we got our medical insurance, it was a lot higher than we thought that it, our deductible was $10,000. And that's through, if you look at, I'm just going to start pointing over here, but I'm not sure where these videos are going to show up. But if you look right here, we did a video on healthcare.gov, and you can kind of check that out and see, the little dilemmas with that. Our deductible was really high, Okay. So, but it did work. I mean, there was no state tax. And so for the first couple of years, pulling money out of my 401k, we made more money when we, for the first 2 years of being retired, than we made ever in our life, per year. And so, and on top of that, we didn't have any businesses or children anymore. So we had absolutely no deductions. And so we were paying through the nose for taxes with the federal government, let alone, if we would have been in Utah, we would have been paying really high state taxes, but because we were in South Dakota, we didn't pay that. And so, in that sense, it worked out really well. And the requirements were fairly low as far as getting in there. But you know what? We found out that there's a lot of people that just keep their residency where they used to live. For example, they have kids that live in a particular state, like, for example, Washington. Washington has no state tax. And so, they stay there and they register their vehicles. Now, you still have the issues where you got to get inspections sometimes and things like that, but you got to figure that all out. But what I'm trying to say is that sometimes just because everyone says this is a better place doesn't necessarily mean it. What it means is they think it's a better place. I might think it's a better place, but you need to do your own research. And so as we went along, we actually started spending more and more time in Yuma, Arizona, or at least down in Arizona in general, because Arizona's got tons of boondocking area. But we did pick up a work camping job, so we're here 6 months just on a work camping setup. And so we decided, what, we really like this down here, and if we ever did, quit moving around, we'd probably just stay in the park that we're in right now. And so if you look here, you'll see our review on Sundance RV Resort, and that's where we're staying. That's where we're work camping. And you can also look there for the work camping job that we do. But really, this is how it worked out. I started looking into this a little bit about taking out residency in Arizona, or at least somewhere else, because we never ever went to South Dakota. And so we that's when you take out health insurance, it was linked to the state that you were resident of. And so we could never go to the doctor anyway. And the only way that we could really use our insurance is if we happened to have an accident and had to go to emergency, then the insurance would work. But we decided that, we need to come up with a better plan, and it would be nicer to have something a little closer. So we started checking out some places. So Texas being popular, Florida, we didn't want to drive all the way to Florida. Okay, so I didn't even check out Florida. But Texas, I checked out Texas. Texas requires your vehicle to be licensed and an inspection done on it. But their insurance rates were double what we were paying in South Dakota. And one of the things that South Dakota, we were with America's Mailbox, which is a whole nother story because they're really good to get in, but they are not nice when you want to get out. And look, Tansy's back here, so go back away. So anyway, that was a fiasco, but they really advertised that we have, South Dakota has the lowest insurance rates around, and that's why people want to come here. No, you don't need the help. So anyway, that's Tansy. She's trying to do her debut, except when I want to actually videotape her, then she goes away, I think. But anyway, so when it comes to insurance, you really need to double check, because what we found out as I started calling around is, yes, they were a lot cheaper than Texas, okay? But when I came to Arizona and checked the rates in Arizona, our insurance rates in Arizona were half the cost of what we were paying in South Dakota. And so that saved us almost $600 a year on just insurance by, moving our residency to Arizona. But we checked a bunch of different ones. I really wanted to try Nevada, but that didn't work out either, because they have different taxes, and it just doesn't work out really good. So, you know what? You're getting to be a pain here, Tansy. Go over there and play. Sorry about that. Anyway, so we liked Nevada because we kind of stay between those two states, and they've got really great boondocking everywhere. So, but anyway, we ended up going with Arizona because Arizona has doesn't tax Social Security, and if you remember from our cost video, we actually live completely right now on Social Security, so that is not taxed. And so I'm still trying to get Tansy to stay away from everything. So anyway, so that was a good thing with Arizona. And then the bad thing with Arizona can be that they do have a vehicle tax, which and Nevada has this, and it's very high. So does Texas. So a lot of states have this, and you got to be really careful about it. And it's a progressive tax. So the newer your vehicle, the more the tax. And so it could cost you a couple $1,000s to license your rig. All right. Now, in our particular case, our rig is 25 years old, and I don't know. It's like if it's over 5 years old, then things really drop off dramatically in Arizona. But ours is 25 years old, and so that vehicle tax is very minimal, hardly anything, and so our license. The other thing was, when we went to actually license the vehicle, they said, oh, well, you can get a 5-year license for $100 for each vehicle. So our car is 20 years old, and this is 25 years old. And so we got a 5-year license for $100 for each vehicle. So that's $200 to license our vehicles for 5 years. Now, in South Dakota, it was costing us $230 every year to license both of our vehicles. And so right there, we saved like $800 over the next 5 years by having our residency in Arizona. So then how do you get residency wherever you decide to be? Okay, so hopefully you know by now that you got to figure out what's best for you, right? And some are going to be better than others. And I do have friends that have Nevada residency. They go to Pahrump and they can get set up that way, and it works out very well for them. So, it kind of depends on you. You can't help. Go away. So anyway, she just really loves all this equipment and everything. So, but anyway, so you got to figure out, how do I take out residency? And every state has its own requirements as far as how to do that. All right. For example, South Dakota, like I said, you just walk in, you stay one night, take in the receipt that shows that you stayed there, and DMV will give you a license. They're kind of smart, because they're saying, we're going to just collect all these fees on these people that are never going to be in our state. And so we get to use that money for whatever we want, but other states don't think that way. Other states, they, I guess they want you there, they want to, they're just trying to verify that you really exist, I guess, so anyway, some states make it a little more difficult. In Arizona, what we did was so we're staying here 6 months. And then we're out boondocking for other times within Arizona. So the Arizona said something like, if you are at a place, if you live in Arizona more than 7 months, then you have to become a resident of Arizona. And so in our particular case, we're pretty close to that 7 months, but then we're kind of falling into this thing. Seasonal workers don't have to become residents of Arizona. So you can come down here, work camp and things like that, and you don't have to take out residency. So that's why a bunch of these work campers, they have residencies in other places. They've got some are in South Dakota, some are in Nevada, and it worked great for them. So it doesn't matter. But in our case, we wanted to become residents. We wanted to, we spent a lot of time here. We wanted to get fishing licenses that were in-state because they're really cheap in-state. And there's a bunch of in-state things that were pretty cheap. So it was an advantage for us to do that. So what we did was we took our contract that we got with the resort when we paid our rent. And it's just like paying a rent an apartment, basically, So you just have to prove. And then they give you a mailbox, right? I mentioned that in our video on Sundance. They give you a mailbox. So I had a bunch of my, insurances things were all changed here. So everybody started mailing all their mail to the mailbox here. And so I had all those letters and things, and I took all those things addressed to us in with our contract and things. And then in our particular case, I got a letter from these guys saying that I was living here right now. And, sometimes you can do that and sometimes you can't, it kind of depends on where you're at. And I took all that into the DMV and I got a driver's license. And so we got that right away. It was only, I think they were $25 each for the driver's licenses, so very, very inexpensive. And then we went over to the credit union. We opened a credit union account, with the same documents, just they wanted to make sure that we were part of Yuma County. And then we went over to the library and they said, oh yeah, you're living right here. Okay, cool. And they gave us a library card and everything like that. So the one thing that you got to be really careful with residency is I went to a presentation by a lawyer with the Escapers Club. And he was talking about residency, and he gave an example of somebody that lived in Michigan. They went over to South Dakota and changed their residency to South Dakota, but they really didn't change. They really lived in Michigan full time. All right, so it really doesn't, it's not like us where we're full-time RVers and moving all over the place. But in their particular case, Michigan, went back and sued them and they had to pay their state taxes for that whole time because they never ever left Michigan. They were still in Michigan. They didn't leave and go to South Dakota. So you got to kind of, figure out ways to become residents of that state and show that you really physically are there. Okay. And then you get those types of benefits. So just be aware of that a little bit too. You can't, it's not good to try to trick the system, but because you're a full-time RVer, you really aren't anywhere. I mean, for example, in Utah, this last summer, I think it's the longest we've stayed in Utah for a long time. And that was like 2 months. So it was 8 weeks. Yeah. So, we're in Utah for 2 months, but we normally are everywhere else. So there's no way that Utah can come back on us and say, hey, wait a minute, you are still a Utah resident because you're living in Utah. No, we don't. We live in our motorhome full time and we travel all around. So anyway, so we've now gone through 1, buy an RV, 2, find a job or retire, 3, downsize, and 4, where is your residency? And 5 is, you know what? We need to make a plan. Because as we go through this and everything, it's a lot easier if you kind of plan it out and figure out where you're going and, what's this all going to look like in the end. All right. That's why we do those, number 1, all those test trips and things, kind of figure things out ahead of time, start traveling around. And so as you make the plan, you're going to, figure out what's out there, where do you want to go, what states. We've done the last 4 years, we have spent just traveling up and down the coast. And so the West Coast area. Okay, so all the West area, clear, West Coast being like Utah, Montana, Idaho, Oregon, Washington. We've done very little in California, but we've kind stayed over here in the West. Hopefully this next year we're going to start working our way more towards the East. So you got to kind of figure that all out. Make your plan. You know, if you look at our video here that's on RV Trip Wizard, we use that to plan out everything. And you can go to our website, tigneradventures.com, and you can look, and there's a link down there that says something like our adventures or our map or whatever it might be. I can't remember the exact thing that's on there now, but if you click on there, it shows you a real-time map of where we're at. We're not afraid to tell people where we're at. This is where we're at, and right now we're in Yuma. But you know, that kind of shows you what our plans are and what we're doing. And you can use that same software, and you can watch those other videos, you know, if you want to actually look at it, and you can get a free, you know, trial and check it all out. That's great too. We do have affiliate links down below that for all these different things, but you know, that help us if you decide that you want to do that. But the bottom line is that you need to figure it out for yourself, and that's kind of how all of this is. It doesn't matter what anybody especially on YouTube says, or your friends. It's really what you feel like. You know, how do you feel? Where you want to go, and what's your, you know, where do you want to be life? I mean, we have friends that love to go up into Oregon, and they go out, you know, they'll go with a smaller rig, and even down, we got some people that live in vans, and they'll just drive out into the middle of the forest, and they can park out there really easily, and they love being that seclusion, okay? And if that's you, then that's your plan. But you need to figure those things out, and then if your spouse isn't quite on board, or I should say partner, if your partner's not quite on board with the whole idea, then do some of those test trips and things like that, and see what they think of it. You know, remember in one of my past videos on, you know, doing this whole RV full-time type thing, I mentioned, you know, the idea is to keep your partner happy, so they're not trying to figure out how to do everything. Make sure they understand how it all works and things like that, and you show them all those things, and you know, some, you know, come on board and some decide not to. We've got a few friends that just travel them by themselves and their partner stays home. You know, it's unfortunate, but that's how it works sometimes, and maybe it could be that they're still working and you're not, or whatever the case may be. But those are things that you have to work out. So that planning stage really comes in handy. So hopefully these few steps here will help you in deciding if you want to become a full-time RVer. Like I said, you know, that we love the freedom, the adventure that we get to have. We love spending time together. And you know, the funniest question that we got for quite a long time, as we were telling our friends and different people, you know, that we met, just not, you know, that were new, about what we were going to do, just said, man, you must really love your husband, or you must really love your wife to spend that much time, because let me tell you, in an RV, there's no privacy, and there's no, you know, I mean, you're right next to each other all the time. And, you know, if you want, you can go outside. And so I do a lot of work outside where I'm working on the rig or puttering around doing whatevers, you know. I just like to putter on different things, and I have little different hobbies that I like to do and stuff like that. So, you know, you don't have to be together all the time, but you are pretty much together all the time. And we love it. We love being together. And so that works really well for us. So those are things you got to figure out. So, but anyway, with that said, I'm just going to leave it there. If you have any questions, please put the questions in the comments and stuff. And please, you know, let us know, you know, give us a thumbs up. Just let us know how you feel about this whole thing. And if you have any questions, I am more than happy to answer as far as my view on life. All right. And then you have to decide on your own. So we never want to make, you know, talk anybody into this if they're not really into it. So it's something that's very personal. And so with that said, I'll go ahead and say goodbye for now. And we'll hope that we're going to see you down the road, and maybe we'll be on one of our next videos. So thanks for watching.